HBO is responding in the absolute worst way possible for the overall health of the sport. When Peter Nelson, a former boxing writer, was named executive vice president of HBO Sports in 2015, it was hailed as the dawning of a new day for the downtrending boxing department at the premium cable giant. And Nelson pretty much did as well as a boxing writer with real stroke could be expected to do. He tanked the job. HBO boxing viewers have come to expect that stars, the ones that move fans to subscribe to the channel, will either be stuck behind a paywall or showcased in god-awful mismatches, while any good, competitive bouts on the network will feature fighters that only a shrinking hardcore base really cares about. There's no way to sugarcoat the reality that HBO boxing, under Nelson, has been god-awful in the area of growing the sport, and the numbers tell the story. As this writer noted in an article written for another site, TV ratings for this new era of HBO boxing have responded accordingly, trending steadily downward, threatening to make this the first year in HBO boxing history without a main event average viewership over 1 million. Here are the average viewership numbers for HBO boxing main events this year. Jezreel Corrales Alberto Machado, 545,000. Analog Replay, 726,000. Jorge Linares Luke Campbell, 687,000. Roman Gonzalez Rice Akitsor Rung Visai, 796,000. Miguel Cotto Yoshihiro Kamigai, 730,000. Miguel Burchell Takashi Miura, 683,000. Ward Kovalev 2 Replay, 752,000. Terence Crawford Felix Diaz, 961,000. Canelo Chavez Jr. Replay, 769,000. Anthony Joshua Vladimir Klitschko Tape Delay, 738,000. Vasil Lomachenko Jason Sosa, 832,000. Golovkin Jacobs Replay, 709,000. David Lemieux Curtis Stevens, 606,000. Miguel Burchill Francisco Vargas, 497,000. HBO boxing was once the home of premium bouts featuring elite fighters. Super fights were reserved for pay-per-view. Their Boxing After Dark program came along to feature the lesser-known fighters in scintillating late-night brawls for the boxing true believers. And all was well with the boxing universe. Well, actually, not really. While HBO had its act together, it was still slowly sapping the sport of its fan base by its very existence, putting a pay barrier between the sport and new fans. Now, so many years later, boxing in America is paying for the short-sighted cash grab concept of sticking everything of note featuring everyone of note on subscription-only TV. And HBO is responding in the absolute worst way possible for the overall health of the sport, with a schedule that is basically all Boxing After Dark and no parts World Championship boxing. New to the HBO boxing schedule is a December 9th tripleheader featuring in Orlando Salado Miguel Roman main event atop an all 130-pound event with Francisco Vargas and Tevin Farmer in separate supporting bouts. The thought behind this card is logical from the mind of a boxing writer: set up a super featherweight narrative and playoff-style format for future matchmaking consideration. The problem is that any possible combination of Salido, Roman, Vargas, and Farmer would not draw much more than the 700,000 who always tune in for any boxing on HBO, anyway. The same can be said for HBO's efforts to create an identical scenario in the 115-pound division. It's appealing to the ever-shrinking base, but it does nothing to bring attention and, subsequently, money to the table. HBO boxing continues to bring in fewer viewers while the boxing product plays a smaller and smaller role in HBO programming strategies and budget consideration. With less money to play with, more bouts get pushed to PPV or driven from the network altogether. To make matters worse, HBO has decided to put their Saladoraman card up against Lomachenko Argundo on ESPN, a super featherweight bout that does have some actual buzz. In better days, HBO would be all over Lomachenko Argundo, but these aren't better days, and the network's muddled mess has even sent longtime ally Bob Arum looking for another home base for his biggest fighters. So, where does HBO boxing go from here? Maybe it disappears completely. And that would be a big blow to the American fight scene in the short term, but could ultimately help motivate promoters to actually get out into the real world and try new ways to market the sport to new audiences. Or, maybe, HBO decides to reinvest in the sport and rebuild from the mess they've made of things. Maybe HBO sticks with Nelson and his overall vision, a vision which may include running off more demanding fight providers like Arum and Al Haymon, and a plan to rebuild over time with new, easier-to-work-with promoters. In any case, HBO has decided to play to the hardcore true believers at the expense of expansion. And the ratings being generated are real eye-openers, telling the tale of a boxing base that is clearly diminishing. The American public still wants to believe in boxing, and the sport is still very much part of the national identity and culture, but the support just isn't there. Something will have to be done to grow the boxing fan base and promote the game in new, more dynamic ways. Whatever the answer is, though, HBO Boxing clearly doesn't have it.